Welcome to the Butterfly Effect. I'm Chris Horner. This is stage one of Vuelta Andalucia, or better known as Ruta del Sol. Today's stage one, 200 kilometers in length. It's going to start off climbing and it's going to finish with a climb. With 20 kilometers to go, there's an 8-kilometer climb. That's about 4%. And with 1.5 kilometers all the way to the line at 7% is going to be a hard finish for all of today's racers in stage one of Ruta del Sol. Now, right away, the break is allowed to go up the road. It's all non-Pro Tour teams up there. So with a group of 8, that's a large break to let go away. But without Pro Tour teams, you can figure while sitting on the couch that most of these group of 8 probably aren't climbers and certainly aren't general classification, big time stage race climbers. That's what the Pro Tour teams back there are believing. And so they're allowing this group of 8 maximum time. Now, one other factor of allowing so much time to a group of 8 on today's stage is that when you look at Bahrain Victorious, who sent out an email to everybody that's on their team list, I received it myself. It said, hey, we're coming to Ruta del Sol with all our big hitters. Mikel Landa's here, Jack Haig is here, Wout Poels is here. So they have a solid team of riders here, and they brought second at last year's Giro d'Italia, Damiano Caruso here. So when other World Tour teams look at this stacked team of Bahrain Victorious, they're expecting, especially when Bahrain Victorious sent out an email talking about how all their big hitters are coming here, they're expecting Bahrain Victorious to control today's race. And I'm sure Bahrain Victorious said, hey, we're not going to do everything. So the gap extends out to 15 minutes to the group of 8, and now we got an exciting stage instead of one of those sleeper stages where the break gets away, they get caught early, and then we watch a little bit of action with 1.5K to go. Now, with that time stretched out to 15 minutes, when the cameras turn on with 70 kilometers to go, the break has just under 7 minutes. At that point in time, with an 8-man break, fairly flat all the way to 20 kilometers to go when the 8-kilometer climb starts, when I'm sitting on the couch, there's a good chance that this break can go the whole distance and finish while winning the stage and taking the race lead. The question really is, when you're sitting on the couch, that you want to ask yourself, how much of a gap will be given to these front group of 8 riders up here, and how much will that group of 8 today's break affect stage 2, 3, 4, and 5 and the later stages of this week of racing? Now, like I said, multiple teams got on the front back there and started chasing. Bahrain Victorious was chasing, Intermarché was chasing, Ineos will put on a chase at points throughout today's race. And then Bike Exchange will start chasing because they have the Vuelta winner, Simon Yates, starting today's race. As we get to the 20-kilometer climb, the break of 8 that had not 1 but 2 Sport Vlaanderen riders. Hedegaard represented Sport Vlaanderen, and De Wilder was the second rider from Sport Vlaanderen. The other group of riders had strong talent there, with the American rider Steven Bissett putting on a strong show and making the front break. Along with that group of 3, we had Vata Repa, Alvaro Cadros from Caja Royal, Ander Okameka from Burgos BH, who was strong at today's race, and Mark Christian from Ilo Cometa, along with Xavier Izaza from Escatel Escudi. Now, this is a solid group, but with 20 kilometers to go and an 8 kilometers climb, you know there's going to start being some attacks at this point in time in the race. And I'm going to go back to this point in time and explain something after I tell you who won the stage. Right away, it's the Kern Pharma rider, Vojta Repa. That's the first to come off when the gradients start to increase with 20 kilometers to go. Shortly after that, it's Quadros, the Caja Royal rider, that's next to come off the group of 7 that's left, until it's a group of 6. This group of 6 is not going to work and gel perfectly all the way to the finish of today's stage, and the attacks are going to start coming all the way up this 8-kilometer climb between the 2 Sport Vlaanderen riders, specifically Hedegaard, who's putting on a show up this climb, trying to go solo to the finish and win today's race. Now, he won't get away, and the 6 riders will go over the climb together, As they crest the top and start the descent, it's Harrigot down the descent who's throwing in multiple attacks until we start the 1.5 kilometers to the finish of today's race. Now at 7%, the last K is going to be very hard. So you know the group of 6 at almost 200 kilometers in their legs now are going to start to feel it when the attacks come. Right away, it's Okamika that throws in the first tack from Burgos BH. He's followed right away from Steven Bissett, and of course the Sport Vlaanderen rider who has attacked multiple times throughout this last 20 kilometers. He is on top of it and following the moves right away. That group will slow down and allow everybody to come back together until about 300 meters to go. It's Okamika that throws in an attack, but it's Steven Bissett, the American rider for Human Powered Health, that is on form, and he's trying to win today's stage. He's got the lead coming into the last right-hand bend with about 50 to 75 meters to go. And then it's Sport Vlaanderen rider Harrigot that absolutely is finding some more form in today's stage 1. He comes up on the left side of Steven Bissett. They wrap shoulders, and more importantly, their pedals hit each other, and it's Steven Bissett's foot that slides out of the pedal. It'll cost him any chance of winning today's race with only 50 meters to go. The Sport Vlaanderen rider Harrigot accelerates to the line and wins today's stage 1 at Ruta del Sol. Steven Bissett will do a great job of getting his foot back into a speed play pedal and accelerate to the line for second. Okamika, Burgos BH will round out the podium for third on the today's stage. Behind for fourth, Xavier Izaza from Escatel Escudi. Lindsay De Velde from Sport Vlaanderen will get fifth on today's stage, and Mark Christian from Ilo Cometa will hold off the field of chasers back there who are running down their heels all day long. These guys had 15 minutes to begin with on today's stage, started the 20-kilometer climb with about a 5-minute lead, crest the climb with about 2.5-minute lead, and with 1.5K to go, that group of 8 that turned into 6 now only had about 1:20. At the line behind Mark Christensen is the group of GC favorites, and it's Kove from UA Team Emirates that's hot on the heels of the Breakaway riders up front, finishing about 30-40 seconds behind the winner of today's stage. The group of favorites behind him pretty much finished together about 7 seconds behind Kove. Simon Yates didn't lose much time, stayed with all the GC favorites. Bahrain victorious Mikel Landa lost about 10 seconds from that group of 40 or 50 riders of GC favorites on today's stage. So Bahrain victorious, who started with 4 favorites, is down to 3. Mikel Landa, we're not sure of his form if he lost 10 seconds on today's stage in 1.5 kilometers. But it should be exciting to see what Bahrain victorious can do with all their big Grand Tour hitters here at Ruta del Sol. Now, Sport Vlaanderen, fantastic job, guys. Well-deserved victory on today's race. Along with that victory, you are the GC leaders to start stage 2 at Ruta del Sol. Now, before I go, I want to go back to that 20-kilometer mark and explain something that I heard tactically from GCN commentators. While I'm sitting on the couch, they're going up that last 8-kilometer climb with 20K to go, and they start attacking. And Brian Smith from GCN, he says, they shouldn't be attacking each other. When they go over the climb and start the descent, now Brian Smith is adamant about they need to start attacking each other, especially the Sport Vlaanderen riders. Those 2 riders got to start attacking on this descent before the last hard 1.5 kilometer climb to the finish starts. Now, every rider in the breakaway has to find their point of when the most intelligent time there is to attack. When you're going up 8-kilometer climb with 20 kilometers to go, the strongest rider in the race, this is a fantastic time for the strongest rider in the breakaway to start attacking at this moment, because he can get a gap, they can play some games behind, and he can go over the KOM, go down the descent, bomb the descent, and now he has to survive the 1.5 kilometers uphill to the finish. if you're a rider starting this last 8 kilometers and you're suffering, you definitely don't want to attack going up 8 kilometers. You want to sit on the wheel as long as you can, because remember, it's a 4% pitch. So every moment and throughout each race can be different. But talking about this stage with a 4% climb, if you're a weak rider, you want to sit on the wheel and you want to get as much draft as you possibly can. And then the perfect time to attack is on that fast descent, because a weak rider could get a jump with some speed, and then hopefully they play tactics, and now he gets a big gap, and then he has to survive the last 1.5 kilometer climb to the finish. Now, we'll take maybe a pure climber in this group of 8. I don't know which one of these riders would be the best pure climbers, but there's always one of them there's always one in the group that will be. So when you start the 1.5 kilometers to the finish, if you're the best climber in this group, there's no reason to attack going up the 8 kilometer climb as long as a few guys are working in that group together. There's no reason to tack down the descent, because you can drop everybody going up the 1.5 kilometer climb to the finish, because you're a pure climber and it's 7%. So throughout the stage from 20 kilometers to the finish, when you're watching the race, if you're listening to Brian Smith, I don't agree with his tactics about not attacking on the 8 kilometer 4% climb. That's a perfect time for a strong breakaway rider to go away at that moment. The descent would be a perfect time for a very weak rider who's had to find a way to survive up that 4% climb and get a gap before you hit the last 7% to the finish. So when you're sitting at home on the couch listening to the commentators, remember and keep in mind that what they're saying is not always 100%, and you might not agree with my tactics here. But the most important thing when you're watching a breakaway of 8 riders, or whatever that magic number is, today was 8, but the tacks always come when it's best benefits the riders in that break. From 20 kilometers to the finish, if you're strong, it's definitely a good time to attack. And if you're weak, you got to attack on the descent. If you're a pure climber, wait to the last 1.5 kilometer, 7% finish to the line and just drop everybody there. That's my belief tactic-wise on today's race. It was a fabulous day of racing. Make sure you guys like and subscribe, and I'll see you real soon on the next edition of the Butterfly Effect.